Okay, I want to talk to you about factoring by grouping. And even though it's not something that we always teach in Algebra 1, I want to encourage you to investigate this method with your students. It really does make sure that the kids understand factoring greatest common factor out, because it is taking the greatest common factor out of two terms this time. But it also sets up factoring trinomials where a is greater than 1. So when I introduce grouping to students, I bring up the fact that there are 4 terms here, and so maybe this is something different than what we've factored before. And so what I want to do is I want to look at these first 2 terms, and again, by factoring, by greatest common factor, what can we take out of both of these terms? And whether you use the upside down division or whatever method, I will talk my kids to the fact that they understand there's a 3 and a y common to both of these terms. That will leave me an x minus a 7 there. Then I always have my students put a plus. We look at this and decide what is it that's common to these. And I'm going to take out the 5 and be left with x minus 7. And this is what I was talking about. This is a second chance to do greatest common factor, because this factor is common to both of these. So I'm going to take out the x minus 7, and when I do that, I'm left with 3y plus 5.
And I do this exactly like Kathy just did it, other than in the very first step where she's underlined the 2 she's focusing in on, I start with parentheses there. So I would parentheses around the 3 and the 21 and the 5 and the 35 to help them start grouping from the very beginning.
Problem, I see that there are 4s, and there's 4 terms here, and so I suspect that I'm going to need grouping. I'm going to put parentheses around the 8x squared y minus 5x. And then I have an interesting issue because I have this negative. And so what I'm going to do is, remember that subtracting is adding a negative. And so I'm going to put plus parentheses negative 24xy plus 15 and put that in parentheses. So now I'm ready to do my greatest common factor. And in the first term, it's going to be x. And I have 8xy minus 5. And then I'm going to take out a negative because that leading term is negative, and I'm going to take out a negative 3, and I'm going to get 8xy minus 5 again. My term then that is common to both of these is 8xy minus 5, and I'm left with x, and a lot of times kids will say plus negative 3, but I want them to go to one sign and write ax minus 3 for that second term. Now, the nice thing about grouping is I could have gotten around, or not gotten around it, but I could have changed the order of this and taken 8x squared y minus 24xy minus 5x plus 15. And I can go through the same process with my students in a different manner. In other words, I can say, okay, I have 8x squared y minus 24xy plus negative 5x plus 15. My greatest common factor here becomes 8xy, and I'm left with x minus 3. And then here, my leading term is negative 5, so I'm going to pull out a negative 5, and I'm left with positive x minus 3. These terms are the same, so I'm going to take out my greatest common factor, which is very complex at this point, and I'm going to have 8xy minus 5, and because of the commutative property, these both factor to the same term.